other projects and they might be more interesting. So, click in there. Right. So the development model in free software, I'm going to use free software and open source interchangeably tonight because Richard Stallman isn't here, so I can probably get away with it. But I'll mostly talk about free software. Most free software projects are meritocracies, and I've probably misspelled it, but maybe I can get away with it. They're meritocracies, and so at least in theory, the best idea wins. And that's a very simple concept, but it has a number of ramifications, and it can make developing in the free software world difficult, particularly for people who are not used to that. Because many things are upside down in the free software world. How many of you work for commercial software companies? Anyone? Write code for commercial software companies? And how many sort of managers? Not many managers here? Well, how many of the managers write the code? Do the managers write the code? Some managers writing code, very good. But in many commercial software companies, the managers, I think they just have perpetual meetings. That's all they do, or something, or I don't know quite what they do. But in the free software world, the equivalent of the managers are the ones that write the code. And usually, the more senior, if you like, of the developers are the ones that write more code. And so it's quite the opposite. The people who are just starting out tend to write less code, and the people are judged in the community by the quality and sometimes the size, but often the quality of their contributions, their technical contributions to the project. And that's quite an alien concept in the commercial software world, at least in the sort of companies that I've been involved with, although maybe companies are different here. Do you think they're different, or do you think that most commercial companies here in Hong Kong, the people who write, it's the senior people who write more code, or no? It's, right, I thought it would be that would be the case. So, in order to be involved in a free software project, you have to use technical arguments to make progress. And you have to make sure that your technical arguments are very accurate, and you have to have very deep knowledge about the subject. And those with the deepest knowledge tend to be the most involved. So it's important when you're getting involved with a project to understand the internals very deeply so that you can contribute properly. The environment can also be very harsh. It can be a very rude environment. A lot of sarcasm, a lot of people abusing each other. It's common that way. And I'll be discussing later how this might affect different cultures. But I think that looking from the outside, if I look at a mailing list, I often see people saying, people say, to Linus, you're a pinhead. You're an idiot, quite commonly, and then the next email, they're best of friends again. And that's quite common. It's the way the to and fro works in the community. And if you're coming into the free software community for the first time, you might find this quite difficult to cope with. And you need to understand that it's not directed at you personally, it's just the way the community is. Where people in the community tend to be very sharp, very to the point, quite hostile and harsh at first, but as you start demonstrating your technical knowledge, and then people become more respectful and you start getting on better. But it sort of starts off quite harsh. So, yeah? Right. Yes, and there are some particular people in the community that are really known for being very harsh. So I really would feel quite sorry for somebody who just joined a project to come across somebody like Theo Durat from the OpenBSD project, because Theo is extremely harsh. And There's Alviro in the Linux community, or yes, or Greppa, can be very, very harsh people. Individuals, some people are very soft and tend to be easier to get on with if you're new to the project, and some vary. Linus, for example, varies a lot in how harsh he is with people. So you need to understand that the community is not like the normal communities you might be involved with. The communities can sometimes be very harsh places to deal with.
The medium also doesn't help sometimes.
Yes, as Alan pointed out, the medium sometimes doesn't help. So mailing lists, it's hard sometimes to express humour or to express sarcasm in electronic mail, particularly if English isn't your first language. It can be quite difficult to understand when people are joking and when they're serious. And you need to assume that if they're being particularly harsh, there's a bit of humour there. Although sometimes people have very twisted senses of humour, and it may be difficult to understand what they're talking about. But you need to persist if you want to become part of the community. So I'm going to give some suggestions in a bit later how to become involved, ways to get started. So a second thing about the community, at least in the communities I'm involved with, there is a huge emphasis on testing, particularly automated testing. It's very, very important, and much more so than in commercial companies that I've been involved with. Now maybe all the commercial companies I've been part of have just been bad at testing. I don't know, but I suspect that the free software community emphasises testing and automated testing more than the commercial community. One thing that is noticeable is that in the free software community, often it's the most experienced people in the project that develop the test suites. Whereas I think that in the commercial world, it's most common that the interns and the least experienced new programmers develop the test suites. And that's a very bad idea, because what you must absolutely get right is your testing, particularly automated testing. And it's quite a skill to develop really good test suites. So I think that's a mistake that is made often in commercial software development, that they don't emphasise testing and put the best people on developing the test suites. And as a result, they don't find the bugs as fast. There's a bit of a myth that some people think that open source is successful because of the many eyes principle. That, there's a quote about if you have enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. That's rather misleading. That implies that every line of code will be read by thousands of people. That doesn't happen. It's quite rare. Some code, that happens. There's some particular modules. I'm sure the scheduler in the Linux kernel has been read probably by tens of thousands of people, because it's such a core piece and everyone has an idea about scheduling. But most free software code really is only read by a few people. And so one of the reasons the quality can be good is really the emphasis on testing rather than, and building test tools, rather than the emphasis on lots of people reading it. And anyway, having 10,000 inexperienced coders reading a piece of code doesn't help. Having one good coder reading the code is much more important. So this many eyeballs theory is, I think, a bit overstated sometimes about free software. Submitting untested code is a major mistake. Some people think that it's okay to... Can everyone see these slides okay? I should have put it up on that screen. Is it clear enough on this one? Yeah? Okay. So some people submit code to a project and they haven't tested the code. And that's a big no-no. It happens.